What's going on? What's going on? This is the Extraordinary Man Podcast. You guys know me by now. If you don't, let me remind you. I am Phil Jones, one of the hosts of the Extraordinary Man Podcast, and you guys by now should know the single greatest co-host, A plus, A minus mics on the face of the planet. Make sure you God, it's just too much to talk about when it come down to this individual because of the Money Mondays, because of the flawless interpretation of how to get your life in order. I'm talking too much. State your name.
Man, what is going on, man? And as always, thank you for the extraordinary intros, man. I am Midas. Make sure you put a king in front of that. Let's go.
All right. So, whether some of you guys know it or not, Midas took off on YouTube, not a super duper duper viral based on people's perceptions of virality, but for our channel's worth, he put out a video where he was responding to the Just Hilarious response to the transgender commentary based on women owning womanhood. For some reason, this thing was a hot topic and it started to take off like hotcakes around social media, around YouTube space, and so forth. One of the things is that after assessing the video, after assessing all the different points and components to what was being said on both sides of the argument, us being a men-centric channel, one of the things that came to mind as him and I started having conversation about it was, what is a man's place in this conversation? Obviously, a biological man who has transitioned to a woman made the commentary that kind of set off women, biological women. But what about us biological men that we and our interactions with women, what is our place in this conversation? Midas, what do you think that our conversation or our place in this conversation is?
And it's kind of hard to say at this point. And the reason that I say that it's kind of hard to say what our place is in this particular fight is because, as I stated in the video, I don't see a massive amount of women coming out and speaking against it. There's still a mass amount of droves of women that's actually more protecting it than anything, versus actually looking at it from a bigger picture standpoint, where you're getting a lot of your rights violated. Your privacy is getting violated. A lot of the sectors that was built and designed and supposed to be mandated for women are now being interfered with by male individuals that want to portray themselves as women. So, a lot of the especially the sports sector, setting unobtainable records, that women may not be able to, overtake, and it's getting crazy, they're getting outshined, outshadowed, or overshadowed. It's getting crazy.
So here's something I want to just kind of add to that, and it may be considered controversial to somebody. It may feel a way, and it's like, I don't really care about feelings at this point. Because when it comes down to my position, as far as being a man with family, being a man with a daughter, being a man with just the understanding of the broader picture when it comes down to the safety and security of one's family, I personally believe, and I'm going to start here and I'm going to broaden it out, and I just want you guys to follow me as best as humanly possible. I will not start any statement saying I don't have anything against the LGBTQ community, but my solidarity with human rights will not be questioned. I do feel that every human being, regardless of what your status or your claim or what your thought process is, that everyone is entitled to decency, respect, and the right to live. I will not, as a man, I will not, under any circumstances, play into something that I don't believe in just for the sake of being nice, just for the sake of being socially acceptable. I will not do it. I will not use some created pronoun. If you want to be called a specific name, I will call you by the name that you choose that you would like to be called. I have no problem with that. Namely because I don't have access to your birth certificate. I don't know who you were, nor is it a concern of mine. But I will not call you some imaginary pronoun to make you feel better about something that clearly is not what it is. And at some point in time, as men, as women, as rational thinking human beings, we just need to stop being stupid. Just stop. I start off that part of the conversation by saying this. When it comes down to a person's feelings, right? I've seen people die and I've known people to kill because of their feelings. I've known great atrocities to happen because people feel something. The Holocaust happened because people felt something. And there was a group of people who were affected because another group of people felt something. This group of Europeans felt like they were superior, so slavery happened across the world and colonization happened across the world because some group of people felt something. Some of the greatest atrocities that have ever happened in history have happened because somebody or somebodies felt something. And what they felt was at the detriment of someone else. So now, let's curb this and bring this back. I might as well just jump in anytime. When it comes down to the specific argument, I feel like as men, this is an example that I want women to take notes to. That you going outside and going to go get your bag, making your own money, you could do bad all by yourself. It don't get no worse than having men trying to replace your position as women, as something that you were biologically born as. But then when you push men out and you make them feel unnecessary, you make them feel optional, you make them feel like handbags, when society has normalized or is attempting to normalize men portraying themselves as you, a lot of men sit back and say, oh, okay, well, since y'all could do bad all by yourselves, well, do bad. It don't get no more bad than this. So you got men telling you that you don't own periods. Where you have men that tell you that they can go into your locker rooms and they can go into your bathrooms and they can take over your sports and they can do anything that they want to do because they can pretend to be you whenever they want. Do it
You're
get
not
more
gonna do
bad than
nothing
that?
about it. Not gonna do nothing about it. And not only are you not gonna do nothing about the fact that I'm going to take over your sports and I'm going to try to take over your spot as being a wife to a biological man. You're going to protect me. You're going to look at me as an ally and you're going to protect me while I'm really harming you in the process. And I want to make sure that is very clear because somebody made a comment on that video. They always got to take it to being like a racial thing. There was no race mentioned at all in the whole entire video, and there's no race mentioned now. This is not a racial issue. This is a behavioral issue. So, take a sip of that lemonade. I'm gonna take a sip of my water.
Yo, this Simply Lemonade is fire, bro. Like, I gotta have it. I gotta at least once a week. I treat myself to a gallon of Simply Lemonade, or whatever the tub size is, and it's like I just enjoy it to myself. But on the topic, bro, listen. I am going to defend the right to make sure that men are not in the bathroom with my woman and with my kids.
Yeah.
My daughter want to play sports. I'm going to defend the right for her to be able to go into her locker room and feel safe. I'm sorry. It's just like, no, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. And again, those preconditioned statements that you say because you already trying to invoke some level of sensitivity to it. Like I had to catch myself right there. I am not sorry that my masculine nature says to protect women. I'm going to protect women by any stretch of the imagination. And this is one of those things where I feel that as a man, I am in solidarity with my women.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in solidarity. Me and my women may not get along. They may not see me as a black man. They may not see me as valuable as they see other males and other races. They may not look at me as the top echelon or whatever the sake may be. I don't care. That's irrelevant to the point to where in a situation like this, you have to draw a line in the sand. And as being a man, you have to stand on something. And Midas, I stand on this. I stand firmly on this that I will not, under any circumstances, just sit back and turn a blind eye to the fact that you have these guys that are walking around dressed up, getting surgeries, even if they're not getting surgeries, hormone treatments, or whatever the circumstances may be. You do not get the right to push yourself or propel yourself into the place as women. Trans women are not women, they are trans women. You are a biological man who transitioned to look and take on certain attributes of a woman. You're not a woman. You're
I
not
find
a
it
woman.
very, I find it very interesting how, as the lady said in the video, who was transgender, that biological women do not gatekeep periods, and do not have a right and authority to claim womanhood. I find it very interesting that a man, that is trying to portray themselves as a woman is telling a woman they don't have a right and authority to claim womanhood as you portray yourself as said woman. It's very oxymoron. There's a lot of baffling conversations going back and forth with this. And a lot of it just doesn't make sense at all. It really doesn't. And there's no actual like true, y'all go watch the video, but man, there's no backing. There's no scientific backing to any of this at all. And I think that's a big part of it as well. There's nothing scientific, no biologist, nothing backing these said feelings, because that's what they are. They're just feelings.
So let's just call it what it is. This is not a matter of science. As you stated, this is a matter of behavior. I guess, behavioral
Yes.
science, however you want to micro address
Mm-hmm.
that. What we're dealing with now is a place to where you have allied yourself with something because it allied itself and it built itself off of the struggle. That comment of race is because a great deal of the movements or the strides that the LGBT community made were based off of comparing their struggle and their oppression to that of the black struggle. Because the black struggle is the American identifier. So to align yourself with the black struggle is almost like gaining brownie points for your existence. The problem is that nobody knows that you're gay until you tell them. You can look at me and you can tell what it is that I am, whether I like it or not. Doesn't matter what I'm mixed with. Doesn't matter where my parents are from. You see dark skin, you automatically associate me with something.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. Don't matter how many languages I speak. Don't matter how many degrees I hold. It does not matter. In the eyes of the general consensus, the second that you see me, that's a black guy. Does not change. So whatever preconceived thought process that you have about a black guy is already embedded the second that you look at me. By people aligning their struggle with the struggles because of your behavior, that your behavior is the identifier. So by people looking at your outlandish representation, and let's just face it, here goes. Here's really what a lot of it boils down to. You could correct me if I'm wrong. If you look at certain things that we've seen in the media over years, a great deal of the flamboyant behavior that you've seen, drag shows and saying a lot of the tranny images and stuff like that, the behaviors, the mannerisms have been built off of what group of women?
Mm-hmm.
The
Ours.
flamboyant behaviors, the overly aggressive, overly masculine overtone, the behaviors that you see in a lot of effeminized males is that of masculine ghetto black women. Everything from the hair, the makeup, the loud, obnoxious, look at me, I'm here. A lot of it has been emulated off of the black woman.
I mean, when you look at them and you see how they move and dress and talk, I mean, what other thing can you compare them to?
I mean, there's other cultures that I'm pretty sure that you can go here, there, and you could, again, micro assess things. I can only speak from the representation that the women in my culture have
That's what I
portrayed
was referring
and the
to.
similarities. You said
Mhm.
what?
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
Us, yeah, you know.
Yeah, so speaking from somebody, so therefore somebody that's in, saying, I won't even say the white community, but somebody that's in certain, saying European descended communities say, oh, well, we have a group of women who act like that over in such and dress like that over such and such. Okay, well, they can speak from their point of view. I can't speak from that point of view. I could just speak from growing up in a place like Chicago, looking at how women dress, looking at the things that they do, the congruencies between Boys Town and Inglewood, the behavior patterns, the loud, flamboyant behavior, and the similarities and traits, and then also the solidarity that a lot of black women have had with homosexual males. I can't really say much more than that, other than the fact that this is the common denominator from my perspective. I am not a I'm not a theorist, or nor am I a statistician or anything in the realm of homosexual and black congruencies. I just know that I can see, I can hear, I can speak from my experiences living and going and moving around. And man, his behavior is just like Charlene's behavior over on 70 something in Colfax. I just seen a black girl with the same pink hair that I just seen this dude down here on Belmont with. Same hairstyle. But then it's like I look around at other cultures, I don't see it. Not that it doesn't exist, but because of my surroundings in my area and what I've seen and what I've known, and then if I turn on the TV and I look around, well, guess what? It's there. You turn on Love and Hip Hop and it's there. You
Yeah, and that's
see,
when I mentioned the agenda. Um, it's and it's not to say that it can't be there. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is it's there. It's in your face. It's in all the movies. It's in all your TV shows. Now it's in the music for sure. You got a lot of big artists, out now that are, in that community. Saying kudos to them. But what I'm saying is theirs has been an extremely huge, massive push for this. And I also came across, and I don't know how true the rumor is, but as I was going through definitions, I came across Cambridge's definition, and one of the sentences that stood out was about being the first elected transgender official into office. And there's a rumor going around that, a wife to a said president, rhymes with Osama, is supposed to be running for president in 2024, who is supposed to be part of this said community. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see that definition or that sentence used towards that definition, and then this rumor pops up about she's supposed to be that. So I don't know, man. The point that I'm making is there's a big push. There's definitely an agenda, okay? Especially when you're having story time at libraries, and then now you're doing what's called family gathering shows, family gathered shows, whatever. And the kids are there, but you're doing all these provocative dance moves or whatever in front of kids, and shame on the parents that are bringing their kids to something like that, because you're exposing your child to something like that at a very young age. And it screams, you know what I'm saying, the P word, don't want to use it for YouTube algorithm, but you know what the P word is. And it screams that. I don't understand how no one is not being checked. How's no one not being checked?
Because political correctness has a lot of people shook. The fear of cancellation, the fear of being shunned in society, the fear of being doxxed and people putting out your address and getting your job taken from you, the fear of being labeled as somebody speaking hate speech or somebody that's speaking against the community, just the fear of defamation. People are so at fear of the backlash that comes along with being honest with people.
And that's where we at. That's where we at. Honesty. No one here is talking hate speech. No one is telling anybody to grab your guns and pitchforks and your torches and start, saying door knocking, trying to going on a transgender hunt. Ain't nobody saying that, and ain't nobody telling nobody to go out there and do anything like that. There ain't no hate speech, nothing being spread. What we saying is we need to operate in honesty and we need to operate in logic. There's nothing logical about a transgender woman being proclaimed as an actual biological woman. That is just not logical, and we need to operate in honesty. If you want to move in that manner, if you want to live that way, that is fine. No one is going to hate you or anything for that. The problem is the level of honesty that you have about doing it. That's the problem.
I mean, more so of anything is just like to try to push yourself into the square peg into the round hole concept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like I am less disturbed by the transgender person who is trying to push the narrative as I am as the straight people who are trying to advocate for it. But you think about it in so many ways. There are so many of us, especially in our community. And it's like you look at policies that are being done by certain political groups, and you ask yourself, why would the people in Appalachia, West Virginia, and Virginia, the trailer park community, why would they vote Republican? When all Republican policies are completely against their best interest. And it's like in the inner cities, large population cities, if I'm not mistaken, it's 27 out of 30 cities have the worst crime, and all those cities are being ran by Democrats. It's like, okay, well, it's not my political view online here, but it's like just look at the data and say that there's a common denominator to say that something may be wrong with the policies that are allowing for such behaviors to happen in 27 out of the top 30 major metropolitan cities. If the common denominator is how we're voting and what policies that they're coming up with, maybe we need to revisit those policies and see if there's an issue. But
Mm.
it's a commonality for people to do things that are against their best interests because they don't think long term. They don't think into the future of things. And then
If
it's
there's
like,
any thought at all, if there's any thought at all, because I don't think that they're really hearing like the true ramifications of what can happen for real, what can be an outcome, and how does this affect? Yeah, you're right. Long term, how does this affect them?
yeah, how does it affect children? Because of the thing
I
is
just
that,
like this person. I just like this person. It's I'm voting for him because he's against you.
I
Just like
mean,
how Harvey came out on his show talking about, yeah, I'm voting for him because he's black. That's it. But
I
there
mean,
was no actual true, you know,
what is his
looking
policies? What is his
yeah,
beliefs? What are his thoughts?
looking at the criteria, but
I
I've
think
always
that
looked at the criteria of everybody that ran.
I think that more so anything like on subject when it comes down to the specific community, one thing that has to be considered specifically is the fact that the lifestyle does not produce children. The lifestyle cannot produce children. So the only way for there to become more LGBT is to recruit. You don't your lifestyle does not accommodate birth. If there was a way for LGBT communities to actually make their own children, have their own children, there will be no issue. But the issue is that when you get to children and you start developing the mind to consider this as an option as children, these are the things that generally happen. You train a child at sports at a very early age, you expose them to certain things, they generally gravitate to those things. Some people, they grow out of it because it's just not for them anymore. But there's certain things that they do that they've always done that they will continue to do because it was what was around them. So again, like the sports example, you train a child to be financially savvy early. They have more of a chance of being financially savvy adults because financial competency was around them during their entire upbringing. You cannot think that any level of behavior that is exposed to children in the most impressionable states, that those behaviors will not linger. So we have to be very careful. And it's like, as a father, I look at these things and I say to myself, like, what exactly are we doing as parents? What are we doing? When you sit here and you look at these situations and you say to yourself, like, hey, what if my daughter received that message before the Just Hilarious thing, before I received it? What if she, because of her lack of understanding about human biology, agreed with it? And now for years, she's advocating for something that is clearly not true. Men don't have periods. There is no hormone replacement treatment that you're going to get that's going to make a man have a period. They don't. They will never. But you train a child to believe that it is an option. Well, what do you think they're going to believe when they get older? They'll be programmed to believe that this is optional. And it's not. It's not true.
And I think that's the whole meat and potatoes and the basis of the whole argument is, saying operating in truth. Um, are there behavioral issues? Not a psychiatrist. I'm not any of that. So I can't psych evaluate anybody to say that there's any behavioral issues as far as what they're doing. But I definitely believe, as far as behavior issues, as far as dealing with the children, yeah, that's definitely something that needs to be evaluated and handled expeditiously. And my TI voice,
I'll
for
say
sure.
as a just as a man in general, and it's like this is how I'll close up my sector of the argument. I feel like when it comes down to me, my job is to call things as they are. As being part of the logical sector of the human race, I cannot allow myself to just go along with things just for the sake of being nice. I
Mhm.
cannot, I will not, I refuse to. I won't drag somebody. I won't disrespect anybody. I won't go out of my way to try to diminish people's personalities. I won't just go out and blanket and just say these people are mentally ill. What I will say is that the
Right.
behavior is abnormal.
Yes.
And with the abnormalities of the behavior, you have to take into consideration a couple of very key essential points. Because it is abnormal, it leads to abnormal results. And no matter how you try to slice the bread, you cannot convince people that there's something wrong with them because they don't see the world from your point of view.
That's the force. That's the force that's unfair. Something's wrong with us.
So, as I said before, and I'll say it again, you can feel what you want to feel, and you're entitled to it. I'm perfectly okay with somebody feeling the way they want to feel and living the way they want to live because I believe in human rights. I believe everyone has the same right to live and to be and to exist as they see fit. However, your life and your lifestyle does not have the right to trump mine. If you are a Muslim, you don't get the right to come to me with your Quran and to just start telling me about what you think about Christianity. And then the Christian doesn't get to come to the Muslim and just sit back and tell him what he thinks about Islam. You don't get to trump somebody else's way of life or their viewpoint because you have an opposing point of view. I believe that on both sides of the spectrum. Live and let live. What
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in and what I will never, ever, ever advocate for, and I believe the majority of people feel this way, you don't get to dictate whether or not I get to participate in what it is that you do. I choose to opt out of participating in gender pronouns. I opt out of calling you they when I see one person. I opt out. I don't care anything about your gender identity. I know what I see. And if you disagree with that, I should have the right to tell you, hey, with all due respect, I don't subscribe to that. So let's find middle ground. So because I don't subscribe to your thought process or your way of thinking, and you don't subscribe to mine, let's find an area where we can agree to disagree. So I'll just call your name. Okay, your name was Paul, and you want to be Polina? Sure, no problem. Polina, no problem. But I'm not calling you Zer. I'm not calling you Zim. I'm not calling you Shim. I'm not calling you some made up construct to try to make you feel better. I won't do it. And I think that more people need to stand up and just say, hey, I'm not going to hunt you down. I'm not going to advocate somebody hurting you or harming you or doing something disrespectful to you or
Absolutely.
bashing you socially or chasing you down or doing anything under the nature, but I'm not participating in it. You guys are good over that. You, your community, and your advocates of your community, you guys have that. But those of us that think differently and those of us that feel differently, we're gonna go over here. We're gonna play over here. You guys want to play over here? We got to find middle ground so that we can play together. Otherwise, keep that over there.
And you know what I'm saying? I'll just leave it with this. It's gonna be short and sweet. Um I think that we really need to be careful as far as when we opening up these doors and taking people's, thoughts and feelings into an actual, in-depth situation to where it can now become, law, or this is how we're supposed to operate, and this is the way I was born and all this and that. We got to be careful with that, because now we're going to open up doors that honestly definitely should not be opened up, as viewed as normal.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, somebody that operates as the P word, what if they start, saying, opening up that door, talking about, well, I was born this way. This is who I am. It's in my DNA.
Oh, just
Like,
like people who take lives.
yeah.
So when you start creating this narrative that certain behaviors is already embedded into the DNA, well, guess what? You just open up the door for police, law enforcement. Well, because his dad did this crime, by default, he's genetically disposed to doing this, so we should just lock him up too.
It's in my DNA. You know what I'm saying? My grandfather sold drugs. My dad sold drugs. I sell drugs. It's in my DNA. Like, I shouldn't be locked up for that. This is who I am. So
Or
we
it
got to
works
be
in,
mindful and careful of these doors that we opening up, man.
or it works in a reverse to where you are automatically profiled solely because of the fact that quote unquote embedded in your DNA. You're
Mm-hmm.
followed around and you're treated like your family tree solely because of the fact that two generations of your family members or more did a certain behavior, that therefore by default you are automatically profiled and you're automatically shunned or treated because of what somebody else did. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think that it works both ways, and it's like you have to really understand the fact that when you remove the concept of choice out of the equation, you open up a very dangerous door. That if you choose to do this because this is how you feel, that's how you feel. I'm not anybody who can tell you how to feel. My thing is that there are certain realities that come along with that. Number one, those behaviors do not produce children. Those actions do not further life. They don't produce life. They don't create anything. If anything, the results of that destroy life solely because of the fact that it does not have the ability to create it.
Well, and then you got other people on the other side, like, well, hell, shit, the surrogate business is about to boom.
I
You
mean,
know,
again, even with surrogates, regardless of you are a trans man, you still have a uterus. You still have all the basic building blocks to create new life because that's what you do. Now, with surrogate business, women are still having kids. There's no way of getting around it. Again, we're not playing delusion. Not that you are, but we're not playing stupid. Whether it's a trans man that was biologically born a woman or is women who are advocates of that community that are having children on behalf of members of that community,
mm-hmm.
it's still women, and it's only women that are producing the kids.
That are producing the kids. Yep.
That's the underlying factor. There's only women that are producing the kids. So, in essence of men having a say so or having a part in this argument, I will never go against the woman in an argument to validate men trying to take the place of women. I just will not do it, and I encourage any man, gay or straight, to just use your mind. Be smart. It's not true. It's not real. It does not exist that way. Your biology does not change because you soften up your voice or because you have a surgery or because you grow hair or because you wear certain clothes, because you take on certain mannerisms and behavior. These are not catalysts for what makes you a woman. You are biologically assigned what you are, and those biological functions do certain things. Suppressing those biological functions does not turn you into something else. You're still who you are. You just suppressed your natural ability to do or to create based off of what your assignment was. We just need to keep it real. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's all I got.
So anyway, this is the
That's all
Extraordinary
I
Man
got.
podcast. If you guys like what you heard today, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, get involved in the conversation. Leave all your comments below if you agree, if you disagree. We are always open to civil discourse. We will have a conversation with you if you disagree with some of the points that we made. As we stated, we're not doctors, we're not theologians, we're just men who work hard to take care of families. We do the things that we do based off of traditional ways of life, based off marriage, procreation, based off of the idea that our jobs are to take care of not only our families, but to take care of the world, because that's what men do on a day-to-day basis. So as extraordinary men, we are just sitting here trying to provide some level of context based on the subject matter at hand. And we, again, do not advocate any violence. We don't advocate any hate. We don't speak any hate or any disrespect for any specific groups. We just state what it is. So that's my time, guys. I'm Phil Jones, and you guys know who this extremely handsome individual is on the other side. Although I'm pointing at myself, y'all can hear the voice on the other side. What's your name?
Man, I am Midas. Make sure you put a king in front of that. Let's go.
That's our time, guys. Peace.